something if he wants. He doesn't have to.
That the number one reason used to be that physicians ordering their patients to quit smoking, that was the number one reason why people would quit smoking. Now it's when the employers start to institute a smoke-free work site.
From Viking standpoint, ASCON was seen as reputable, had the full faith of the Viking company, and from their perspective, ASCON is responsible, at least in part, for what went on here yesterday, or the day before.
Our youth have been trying, they've been working in the community now, they've worked with the full chef and all that, is that the youth needs to know that they belong. The community is theirs. And so we're trying to build them up to reclaim the community.
If you heard this 1052, it's right outside my house. That's beautiful.
I was in second grade in Sister Agnes's class at Claude Eloise Academy. I remember Sister coming in tears and the announcement coming over the PA system that we were going to be sent home. The kids were mostly scared because we all thought that there was going to be a war, that was what had happened, and no one could answer our questions.
We've got over 60 volunteers that have come down from various school groups, churches, different people, housewives, people who just want to help, and this seems to really make their Thanksgiving something special. So they're rolling up their sleeves and pitching in.
Well, we've been working on this site for roughly 3 years, and over the last year, worked out an arrangement with the new property owners to lease the facility, and we expect to be a permanent tenant in this facility for a long time to come.
on Saturdays anywhere in Duluth. At this point, councilors, all those operation of parking meters. Thank you.
I think my focus and game plan related to jobs and the 12 years in the legislature to back it up and get it done is the most significant difference.
This is pretty nice though for no, people don't go outside, do they? But, you know, people have really built it up to be.
If we could pick up the driver's license function, that would be a substantial increase in volume, and that would be more than enough to pay the rents and the additional salaries if there are any.
Here is what an intact British Aerospace Jetstream 31 looks like. This type of plane was designed to fly in rough weather. The plane is equipped with heated propellers and a heated windscreen to prevent the formation of ice as much as possible. The aircraft also has heated wing shields known as boots. They are pieces of rubber over the leading edge of the wing that expand when air is pumped into them from controls in the cockpit. The expanding boots break up ice and blow it out. But even with all this anti-weather equipment, the NTSB has been advocating for modifications to make the plane more effective in fighting icing. Experts say there's good reason for that.
Those low visibility icing conditions, particularly during foggy, inclement weather, right around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the freezing level, is some of the most hazardous flying conditions you can encounter as a pilot.
Flight 5719 was also equipped with instruments for navigating in low visibility, known as IFR. The pilot was more than likely flying with IFR as he approached the runway at Hibbings Airport last night. But before landing, a pilot should have the runway in unaided sight. It's unknown yet whether Captain Marvin Felitz did.
Our association in the last 2 years has worked very, very hard.
When I come in here, I talk about voters, I'm talking about...
If Clinton gets his infrastructure program going, and they're going to work on highways and rivers and bridges, and they don't make track out of fiberglass, and they're going to need the product.
From the dawn of the nuclear era in 1945 and on through the Cold War with the Soviets, the federal government exploded more than 900 nuclear bombs. Secrecy reigned, but more than 20% of the tests weren't even announced at all. They were conducted underground in Nevada, sometimes releasing radioactive material.
And we were shrouded and clouded in an atmosphere of secrecy, and I would even take a step further. I would call it repression.
In all, 721 nuclear tests were announced and 204 were not. The Energy Department also declassified amounts and storage sites for deadly plutonium, including 11 tons at Hanford, Washington, 4 tons at Idaho Falls, 13 tons at Rocky Flats outside Denver, 3 tons at Los Alamos, and 2 tons at Savannah River, South Carolina. The more than 30 million nuclear program documents to be declassified are to include more information on 800 Atomic Energy Commission experiments said to have been conducted on 600 people as part of the weapons program, including 18 who were apparently unwittingly exposed to dangerous amounts of plutonium to see how much their bodies could take.
That I was appalled and shocked, and it just gave me an ache in my gut and my heart.
The new data could give researchers crucial information in calculating the nuclear program's impact on public health over the years. The new Energy Department slogan is, "The Cold War is over, we're coming clean." That's quite a contrast to the years of secrecy, misinformation, and lies many officials believed were justified by the nuclear arms race. Sandy Gilmore, NBC News, Washington.
Positive, well, that's great.
Influenza proper is an illness that needs to be taken seriously. Influenza ranks among the 10 most prevalent causes of death in this country, primarily causing a fatal outcome in individuals of older age or with debilitating illnesses.
Around the country, spread out all over everywhere over the last 4 or 5 weeks.
So this book is...
It's ridiculous. It was just like we were doing a radio.
Why is it bad? You make it sound like money is bad.
Oh, no, money's not bad at all. I personally like all the toys, and most people I know enjoy the toys. What we're really saying is there's a balance between wants and needs.
You can buy one that's already cut, you can cut your own, or you can buy an artificial tree. The choices are endless. Some like large ones, others like them...
kind of nice and high and round, you know.
Or... large, small.
Big, bushy, tall.
How tall?
6.5 feet.
There are different kinds also, like a Colorado spruce, Minnesota pine, or...
It's a Douglas fir. We came from Washington, so we like those.
They even come in different colors. There's white, like this one, but most people can say when they look at their tree that...
it's green.
The biggest decision seems to be whether or not to get a real tree or an artificial tree.
Fake. Is that all right?
That's fine, and if you can't decide, you can get...
one real, one fake.
If you choose a real tree rather than an artificial one, it can be a potential fire hazard. Duluth fire officials have a set of guidelines that, if followed, can greatly reduce your risk of having a fire in your home. Don't put the tree near a heating device. Use only UL-approved bulbs. Don't overload your circuits. And most importantly, don't buy a dry tree.
No, it's common sense. If the tree's losing needles in the lot, that's going to tell you that when you get it home, it's going to lose some more, and it's probably been around for a while. When you do bring it home, you want to cut off the bottom, get a fresh new start, and give it plenty of fresh water.
If you haven't gotten a tree yet, you'd better hurry. They're going fast, especially the ones that are
big.
In Duluth, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
Put your finger on is through the selection process.
Well, I think probably first and foremost is that we want to begin to open up lines of communication with a broad sector of the community. I want to make sure that we have a good working relationship with the city and the county. I think that's extremely important in this business nowadays. The Chamber cannot be an island amongst itself. While we represent our membership in the business community, we have to have an excellent relationship with the public sector. So
office 12 years ago, or between 10 and 12 years ago, funding as far as the
For explaining this is a proposal for next year. It's not affecting us in Duluth this winter. It's a proposal for next winter. But we'll have 70 or 80-year-old individuals saying my income is $560 a month. I've worked all my life. I've paid taxes. The energy assistance grant is the only help I get. I anticipate we'll have strong support from Senators Wellstone and Durnberger. Both have been strong supporters of the program. And I think the Minnesota House delegation,
Okay. And relating to her ability then to communicate to others, how is she?
To be put more simply, maybe things to be, you may need to try and repeat things 2 or 3 times, sometimes 5 or 6.
You have anything to say?
No, nothing.
At this point?
Nothing.
Come on, you guys, a little dignity.
Her testimony was that she did not consent,
That it was forced sex, that it was rape?
that she didn't consent to any of the intercourse, and that it happened after he had handcuffed her and pointed a gun at her.
Learning in the classroom. And what we literally do is we take 1 year-long theme, and all skills and all concepts are interwoven through 1 year-long theme.
That theme might be a river, a farm, or even a building, as long as students can gain first-hand knowledge. Susan Kovalik's teaching method focuses on experience and problem-solving, both important elements of how the brain works.
It means we don't have a special time for math and a special time for reading and a special time for science. We say, let's learn the way the world presents itself.
Kovalik's method also asks the difficult question, what's worth learning and why? An example, the standard lesson of how the Earth is tilted on its axis.
How is it critically important for future learning? Well, if I'm going to be a rocket scientist, it's critically important. But how is it critically important for everybody who's not going to be a rocket scientist?
Kovalik's teaching method is now practiced in elementary schools across the country. Now her sights are set on high schools, and she's hoping Barnum High School will become Minnesota's first pilot school.
The interesting thing that I see in her program is that she talks about how people learn, and it's just not in segments. It encompasses the entire individual and all of the experiences that the individuals have.
Well, we were kind of sad that my dad lost his job, and we just didn't know what to do. We kind of thought they would go back to work, but they didn't.
Oh, it's great. You see these kids' faces just light up when they give them some of the presents. And the presents that we've got here, the people have been just excellent.
John Lang and his friends are settling in for a long night. It will only drop to about 20 degrees, but on wet pavement separated from Tower Avenue by only cardboard and plastic, it seems a lot colder.
The ground is what kills you. The ground will kill you.
Lang and his friends have decided to become homeless for just this night. It's something Lang does every year to raise consciousness and money for the real homeless.
The food shelf and the clothing and the coats and so forth, especially winter boots, which we seem to run short on. We have an awful lot of coats around.
They will take whatever people bring tonight. Some years they have raised up to $8,000.
I remember the first year when it was so bitter cold. A little boy came from the neighborhood around here, and I know he's poor. I know him personally. And he came over with two $1 bills and gave this other fellow and I each $1. And he had on a spring jacket and tennis shoes. I thought, boy, if he can do that, then I certainly can do this too.
On any given night, there are easily 100 homeless in Duluth and Superior. The lucky ones find a meal and a bed at shelters like this one, the Solid Rock Mission. Ed Stein has been in the business of helping the homeless for years.
We got those that are really what we classify as a homeless person. That's out and down and out. He got no place to go. He got no family. He got nothing. He living in the streets. He got nothing. We've got a few around, but not too many. But the other class of housing are these people that have got these low-cost income houses. They're scraping pretty close to the bottom. They got nothing for food or anything else, and that's the kind of people we try to reach.
The Solid Rock Mission is funded entirely by donations. This time of year, giving is up. It slows down after Christmas. Donations are key to the survival of other shelters and agencies helping the needy as well. John Lang and friends are keeping that in mind tonight as they settle down to sleep on Tower Avenue. In Superior, Dave Jench, News 6.
Early Sunday, November 28th, a young woman and a child returned home from a Thanksgiving visit to find their apartment burglarized. Someone damaged the screen and opened their window to enter the home, which is located near Lake Avenue and 12th Street. The burglar took his time at the home. He stole their TV, VCR, stereo, microwave, and the telephone. He took a few silver certificates and silver coins that the woman was saving, as well as the child's piggy bank. The burglar even stole an Afghan and their Christmas tree lights. At least one other apartment in the area was burglarized that same weekend. If you have any information on this burglar, or what he did with the things he stole, Crime Stoppers could pay you up to $1,000. No one will find out who called. We don't even ask your name. Help us solve this crime. Call 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH.
The Catholic Church in this as standing alone or even in the forefront. We certainly stand firmly for.
I have to say that this is the most difficult decision I've had to make since becoming bishop. I have deeply believed in the work of the United Way and have supported it in any way that I can. I am distressed that the board does not see what I see as a breach of the neutrality, which I think has been a fundamental position and support for the United Way campaign.
I think it's going to have the effect of hurting people who are served by 35 agencies and 77 programs that those agencies administer. And I think the community is worse for it.
Well, I think some of the discussion today is focusing on is the law enforcement adequate given the needs of the community. It's really not the Department of Corrections' responsibility to provide law enforcement in the community, although we've got a very cooperative relationship and have learned to work together.
For perimeter security, as well as possibly extra
He was worried that she was trying to break it off, and he didn't want to break it off, and he had made threats toward her before, and so she was definitely worried.
Bought her presents, stuff like that. Terrible. Terrible.
Tonight is Letourneau's former boyfriend, Richard Floyd Little. He was charged this afternoon.
This is Next Generation Radar, or NEXTRAD. The National Weather Service will soon be using this radar to make forecasts, track precipitation, analyze winds, and for many other purposes. The equipment they currently use dates back to World War II and has long since been out of date. NEXTRAD has many advantages over the now used conventional radars.
Right now, the 74 model radar gives us a picture, a static picture of where there is precipitation that's not very light. The Doppler radar will, in addition to giving us a static picture that is much more complete because it picks up less significant precipitation, but it will also let us see the movement of that precipitation.
This new high-tech radar will also increase the warning time given to area residents when severe weather occurs.
With the Doppler return, we can actually see the movement within the storm and pinpoint centers of rotation and so on to get better warnings, more accurate warnings out.
With the installation of more modern equipment will also come an increase in staff. Currently, 9 meteorologists are employed at the Duluth Bureau. This will grow to 22. Some of those will likely be transferred from International Falls as the Falls Weather Service is slowly phased out.
The International Falls office will begin to be reduced in staff after we have picked up all the forecast and warning responsibility from them, which would be after we commission the radar, and which would be sometime probably in 1996.
NEXTRAD, which is 50% more accurate than the conventional radar currently in use, will be installed in May of 1995 and is slated to be in full use 1 year later. The National Weather Service hopes to have 160 next-generation radars operational by the mid-1990s. The average local cost of just one site is between $2 and $5 million. Reporting from the airport, I'm meteorologist John Jetta.
Traditionally for us, New Year's Eve has never been a problem for drunk drivers. People seem like people on New Year's Eve are very conscious and very aware of drinking and driving and go to great lengths to make sure that they don't drink and drive. So New Year's Eve's always been pretty good for us.
Well, I try to keep the festive spirit up because there's a lot of people with no family around and they have to work. I'm working and then I'll take a couple hours off for sitting with my mom and all my brothers and sisters have Christmas dinner tonight. So it cuts into it a little bit, but could be worse.
It would be nice to be able to have it off, but after working at it for a number of years, you just kind of get used to working or get used to the realization that somebody's going to be working and you have to take your turns.
I think everybody should be able to be home and be with their family because Christmas is a time for being with your family.
That's the hardest part about it, is not being around my family, but I know they're going to see me next weekend. Well, I've worked every Christmas for like the past 3 or 4, so I'm kind of getting used to it.
I got to say I've been here for 34 years, and if I can't be at home on the holidays, I wouldn't pick any place in the world to be but right here.
I have a notebook with a list, and they're all numbered in the order that they came in, so that's what I do. I just go down the list. We have a radio to our wrecker, so when they come in, when he's done a jump start, then he calls me on the radio and then asks me what's next, and then I call the customer.
Like this, the cars just don't make it.
batteries are a little weak or they need a tune-up, you know, and everybody kind of puts them off when the cold weather comes. That's when they find out they need this stuff.
It was all happened really fast.
You realize how quickly things happen, and how thankful you are when you get out and you're safe. And I just can't tell you how proud we are of the children.
The Trishman family is grateful to be alive today. Teamwork and fire safety precautions saved their lives.
That definitely got him out in time. When we got the call, we were already told that everyone was out of the house, and when I got on the scene, everybody was out. So it's really sad around the holidays.
A smoke alarm woke the Trishmans at about 2:30 in the morning. Luckily, all 6 were able to escape. But the house they lived in for 23 years and all its contents are lost.
It used to be a one-room schoolhouse, and it's pretty old. And we've done a lot of work on it, remodeling and new wiring, and the kids are born here, and all of them growing up here.
The fire originated in the basement of the house, but the cause of the blaze has not yet been determined. The Trishman home was insured, and the family is planning to rebuild on their property. In Alden Township, Gina Katzmark, News 6. In Alden Township, Minnesota, Gina Katzmark, NBC News.
We do have quite a few number of tourists coming into the area. We're promoting the sport, and I really think it's, we need to promote safety as part of our total tourism promotion efforts.
As long as it's worded in accordance with the provisions of the Charter.
This referendum provision of the city charter is intended to protect the public interest if, in an unusual case, a matter is approved by the city council despite the clear wishes of the general public. Friends of Bayfront Park believes that this is just such a situation.
And we announce now that a special petition drive to implement provisions of the city charter to protect
referendum possibly if they don't reconsider.
It's possible. That's true.
How quickly could that happen?
Well, realistically, it might be March or April if they will allow that.
Some of the blood components, the dating period is only for 5 days. Red blood cells is good for 42 days, so we need a constant supply. Every day we ship out units of blood to our 12 hospitals that we service, and we have to replace that each day.
Rising apprehension of crime. Even in those areas where you were perceived, no longer the case. Yeah. I think we have to face reality, and that is the image of Minnesota is changing, and it's giving way to a new reality, and that reality is that the public increasingly feels more fearful about its safety. Yeah.
And ask people about their experiences during calendar year 1992.
In the life of that individual, who we know will be predicted to commit more violent offenses.
They live in cities, in inner cities.
Traveling up Highway 61 this morning from Duluth was actually not too bad. The roads were a bit slick, but visibility was good, all the way to Gooseberry Falls. But travel up the road just 3 miles and visibility turns to absolutely zero. Navigating the road was extremely dangerous. Traffic was moving at just a few miles per hour. Many cars pulled off the road to wait it out.
You can't see anything, obviously, as you guys are experiencing.
What are you going to do now?
We're just going to hang tight.
Some of those who didn't pull off the road ended up running off the road, into ditches and into snowbanks. Semis were stuck, four-wheel drives were stuck, even we were stuck.
There's a lot of cars in the ditch. People have just left them and went home. And probably we won't get to pull them out until this stuff clears off.
Blizzard-like conditions had been hitting the Finland and Ilgen City areas for a day and a half. Last night, many people traveling Highway 61 ended up leaving their cars on the highway to seek shelter at hotels like this one, owned by Lois Tibbetts and her husband.
People didn't have a place to go. And we finally ended up filling our guest room in our home, plus our den. We had a couple that slept on a twin-size bed in the den last night. And they only lived 3 miles from here, just couldn't get home.
Back in 1991, the megastorm dumped over 30 inches of snow throughout our area. This storm already has dumped 40 inches in places like Ilgen City and Finland. And they're predicting more for tonight. Up the North Shore, Ted Rollins, News 6.
What you're seeing here is we're backfilling the
I don't think anything left is better.
Immediately, my position on that issue, so to speak, I'm really a country because I should be for that war because Croatia perceives it as.
So you believe in your heart that this war could go well for many, many more years? It could continue?
I certainly hope that it will not go for many, many years, but I'm afraid it will still continue. There are parts of the territories there are parts of the former Yugoslavia that are potential war zones, so what we are seeing now, it is not really the end, even if the struggle stops.
can make that decision for the competently terminally ill person in pain. Only that person can make the decision. I suspect that it...
If I'm put in the hospital, and it's being ignored. The reasons we're against this is that physician-assisted suicide is just simply wrong. It's not only wrong, it's dangerous. It's a concept that's repugnant to the laws of our nation, I should say, the laws that our nation was founded upon and meant to be governed by.
In my bill, only the mentally competent, conscious individual who's terminally ill and is in pain can request compassionate assistance in the dying process. I don't want to have to go into my garage and turn the car on. I don't have to want to put a gun to my head. I want a legitimate, socially acceptable means to deal with the death process that we're all going to face.
I believe it is about killing. What it's about is whether it's right or not to do this particular killing. The dictionary defines kill this way: to deprive of life. Kill, merely, this is from the dictionary, kill merely states the fact of death caused by an agency in any manner. And I would like to see Mr. Boyle today.
The Chinese lantern has always been a popular spot. Today was no different as a string of cars passed by to gaze at the damage done by yesterday's fire. The roof of the Chinese lantern and the ceiling of the second floor are pretty much gone. The first floor, the restaurant part of the building, sustained massive water and smoke damage, and the basement suffered water damage. All in all, fire experts estimate the loss will most likely reach at least $2 million. And while that's a lot of money, firefighters say they're lucky no one was seriously injured fighting the blaze.
The room collapsed, we backed out, and as we backed out, the hallway that we were in also collapsed. So it was a pretty hairy situation.
The fire, which started early yesterday morning, burned for about 3 hours before firefighters brought it under control. It would be several hours more before it was completely out.
Owner Wing Ji Huey spent the day meeting with insurance agents and lawyers trying to determine what his coverage will be and whether he'll be able to reopen the 30-year-old landmark restaurant. His total insurance coverage is said to be $2.5 million.
You worked hard. It showed. We almost got stopped. We saved a lot more for the building than I anticipated us being able to save.
Firefighters met today to assess their response to the blaze and decide whether they should have done anything differently.
We get together and we take the opportunity to talk to the guys about what went right, what went wrong, what we can change.
Fire officials say their inspection will take several days and will involve an investigation into the possibility of arson. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
was really holding the line on spending. That was very, very important. Work on that. Crime is a great issue throughout the state of Minnesota. People are very concerned about crime. We've had a recent study that indicated that 44% of Minnesotans are afraid to walk at night within a mile of their own home. We need to make people feel safer, and we'll have a lot of initiatives in the crime area.
The monies generated by downtown Duluth parking meters is about $80,000 a year. This substantial amount comes from one day's income, Saturday. Last Christmas, the City Council gave shopkeepers and their customers a break by voting unanimously on a resolution, soon to be a law, that stopped the meters on Saturdays. Now the council is faced with how to replace that income.
Hope they don't raise taxes at least.
The mayor's task force has met, and now they're talking about maybe putting meters on 3rd Street again and metering some of the avenues that haven't been metered, which we talked about a year and a half ago.
As you drive along 3rd Street, you can't help but notice that it's mainly residential. Some of the people who live here may not like the idea of having to put money into a meter when they come home.
To solve the residents' problems, I'm sure we could go with a resident permit type situation where if you live there and you have a permit and you can park in a meter and you're not going to get charged.
Let me save you some time, let me save you some money, sir.
Okay.
Okay, you're about to put some money inside this meter, right?
I was gonna.
You know you don't have to.
Why?
Because consumers like yourself, people were complaining because of having to park on Saturdays and having to pay for parking.
I think it's a great idea.
The meters still don't have the proper time schedules posted. This meter says parking laws not enforced Sundays and listed holidays. Many motorists aren't aware they're wasting their money.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought we still had to use the meters.
Yeah, I know the downtown merchants sure appreciate free parking on Saturday. It probably has to be publicized a little more. So.
The council will review the issue on Monday. They could vote on the ordinance that permanently changes the meter law and those decals within a few weeks. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Next to here is the bull pub, and there's just tables and chairs, and there you can sit around.
Each student who registers at UMD is projected to spend about $1,000 a month in the local economy, including housing, food, services, and supplies. So when you reject a student, you turn away money. When you reject 1,500 students, you turn away more than $1 million that would be spent in the regional economy each year.
If we had a business that was going to come in and have $1 million payroll a year, so to speak, to bring $1 million into the economy, I think we'd be rolling over backwards trying to keep that business or attract it here.
Economists project 2,500 students will want to enroll at UMD within the next 6 years, but UMD officials say they don't believe they'll get the financial support for any more of an increase than about 1,000 new students.
Frankly, it's a major hurdle to get the central administration to make that request because they have not been overly enthusiastic about UMD growth.
City Councilor Neil Atkins says it would be extremely financially beneficial for Duluth if lawmakers could be persuaded to be more supportive. In February, a group of city officials will meet with the Northeastern Minnesota legislative delegation to set a plan for what they'd like to see the lawmakers go after for our region in the upcoming session of the legislature. More money for UMD will be high on the list of priorities. Atkins says he is going to strongly encourage an intense legislative lobbying effort to get enough money for UMD to expand to be able to handle all the students that want to come here. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
First issue, getting people back on the job. We still have to address issues such as overstaffing, but how we arrive at layoffs has to be done consistently and fairly. We also have to address some of the other issues with favoritism and other issues that were brought out today, dealing with management problems and things like that.
I always think about my community as
directly from the sun. discharging the battery.
And what we're doing today is kind of an educational exercise which we do once a year when we get people together and talk about topics which affect the way people live. There's a lot of decisions that people can make about their lifestyles that have positive effects on the environment.
And then this is just a terrific book. It's called Landscaping for Wildlife. It's written by a gentleman who works with an art. If you want to put trees or shrubs or something in your yard, especially for something that you want to attract birds to, or
Change in label design, isn't it?
Every year, in 1992, I decided that the job sale was not effective. So I mean, and I'm trying to do it's about time now.
John, we welcome you again.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to speak about a referendum time period that we were talking about interest for all the finances that are taking place. Noted first interest payment and the first principal payment on this is working in our favor. Board is made.
For these facilities, there are still some unmet needs. For example, the middle school area, junior high school areas, but that has to be resolved yet and worked out.
It's really likely that it's going to affect children the most because, of course, BGH is going to be used in school lunch programs. Any dairy products that are in school lunch programs will go right in, and their growing bodies will probably be affected the most.
Change in IGF-1 concentration did not have any practical biological significance.
A cow that receives supplemental BST will have a slightly higher level of IGF-1.
Now, the obvious question is this important? And the reason the consensus panel...
No growth hormones are in the cows that produce organic milk, and no BGH. And Richard says he'll pay whatever the price. You just don't want this stuff in your milk, is what you're saying.
Right. You know, and if I could send a message out to all the farmers out there, I'd say I'm one person who's willing.
The news today that National Steel has contracted to buy iron ore pellets for 1994 came as no surprise to union members of Local 2660. What did come as a surprise was the announcement the Keewatin plant would most likely be temporarily idle through the end of 1996. One national manager describes the situation as such. We're in the ground, buried. Reaction among many steel workers is the same.
Well, another nail in the coffin.
National says it could buy pellets cheaper than it could produce them at the plant, but Steelworkers Local 2660 President Clarence Kuzi says he wants proof.
Well, if they have a cheaper supply of pellets, and if whoever they're getting them from, I think it's only appropriate that they would give this information to the local union who they are trying to bargain with or should be bargaining with in good faith.
Kuzi says he wants proof and the chance to bid for pellet prices, but National Steel officials say they not only have contracts for 1994, but are continuing discussions on longer-term contracts. Union members have a pretty good idea where the iron ore pellets will come from.
Mintac would be a Mintac and Evelyn, all of them. Yeah. Boatload here and a boatload there. And you can buy the surplus pellet cheaper and you can make them probably.
National idled the Keewatin plant last October after a 2.5-month labor dispute. About 600 steelworkers went on strike August 1st, then later tried to return to work. This latest blow adds to a future already looking bleak. But union members say the fight to keep the plant alive will continue. The National Relations Labor Board could rule within 2 weeks on a list of unfair labor charges against the company. Should the board rule in favor of the union, officials hope the result will be more pressure on National to negotiate. In Keewatin, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
The initial estimate of $125 million to improve Duluth's 330 miles of streets has jumped to $150 million and may go to $175 million. Duluth taxpayers will be footing the bill, but the question is how much?
People are getting outraged that we keep paying more and more, and it all gets to be a question whose ox is getting gored.
Under the city administration's latest plan, the answer is just about everybody. The mayor's office has identified 7 possible revenue sources: an increase in utility franchise fees for $1 million, new taxes due to possible growth at another $1 million, a 1-cent gasoline tax would generate $300,000, a sales tax on that gasoline adds another $350,000. A tax based on storm runoff from your property would add $1.5 million to utility bills. Another $1.5 million in tax increases just to use the streets based on $40 per household. And a $10 charge every time you apply for a license or transfer title would add another $1 million a year. Councilor Chris Dahlberg is upset at the lack of city action on streets. He first proposed a task force to develop an improvement plan in early 1992. Who to blame for the inaction? Dahlberg looks at the mayor's office.
He has 972 employees. He's a full-time mayor. As he says, he spends long hours in there. He's in there Saturday, Sunday, late nights, so he must be spending about 60 hours a week at his job. So this is a job where he should dedicate, this should be almost priority number 1, I think, with the mayor of Duluth. It should be economic development, probably our street improvement program right now.
Last week, the mayor's office mailed out 500 survey forms at random to Duluthians for suggestions on how to fund the city street repair program. But Councilor Dahlberg and others doubt its effectiveness. What if the response is typical to other mail surveys?
Are you going to base a $175 million street improvement program on 25 mailed-in responses? I don't think that's representative.
The survey forms are due back tomorrow, and councilors hope to receive a briefing from the mayor's office at Monday's council meeting. In Duluth, Duke Skorich, News 6.